Being Jewish is hard in CK3. It's difficult to find allies and you're surrounded by hostile faiths. And unlike the Catholics, you can't get bailed out of debt by Daddy Pope with the holy tax returns. Well, guess what? We forged a kingdom and spread our Jewish faith far and wide. And I think it's time for that religion started working for us. And I'm not talking about asking our head of faith for gold. I'm talking about being the guy people pay gold to get rid of their sins. I mean, how do you think this guy got so rich? Look at him! Look at him! So today, we're going to take some inspiration from the Pope and use our religion to become rich and powerful. But first, we're going to need to form an empire because I am sick and tired of juggling succession and watching the realm fall apart over and over and over. We start off by taking a look at the Holy Land. We're going to need to invade this area eventually, and it doesn't look like it's going to be an easy task.
Holy shit.
Also, they're ruled by like the smartest guy in the world. So we're gonna need to build up our power a little bit. And there is no better way to do that than through holy conquest. So we declare a holy war for duchy on our neighbors to the south. Except we forgot to finish researching the catapults. But it doesn't matter for this war, because we just completely obliterate them in the battlefield and then siege down the capital for an easy victory. We then employ our favorite tactic for new land acquisitions by demanding every new vassal converts, and if they refuse, revoking their titles from them. Our armies completely outnumber these counts, so these wars go super easy and we grab these lands and hand them down to our sons. While all that was going on, we find out our brother was having a relationship with our niece.
Disgusting!
This guy was the same dude who lost like half of Nubia when he was 6 years old. So we go ahead and let him cool off in jail for a little bit. And when we go ahead and try and ransom him, we see he only has 3 gold when he should be paying us 100. So we leave him there. He can chill out for a bit.
Brother, help me.
Having wrapped up the vassal situation, the quest for an empire never stops. So we go ahead and declare war on our neighbors to the north. A wrench gets thrown into our plans though whenever some allies join them. We attempt to catch them out as they offboard on the land. However, we're not quick enough to catch them out and they're able to join up with the rest of the group. As we're in their territory, they'll have a big advantage on this fight, so we choose to go back to our territory and look for a more advantageous fight.
Run.
They end up not attacking us in our territory, so we go ahead and siege down one of his allies' capitals. We then look to engage them, but our supply is running relatively low. So we split up, resupply, and then go fight the enemy. We're able to catch them out while they're separated, and we win 2 fights in a row, putting us in a good spot for the war.
Yes!
Oh no.
Yeah, mother.
We also managed to finally finish researching our catapults. So we buy a bunch of those and then start sieging down a bunch of the enemy provinces. We rally up our catapults as our new troops. However, we end up with a little bit of a logistical problem. We're able to siege down a bunch of their territory, and we end up being really close to winning the war. However, our armies are starving, and we end up being caught out by the enemy army. We take a pretty major loss, and the tides of the war definitely have turned. And unfortunately, our leader passes away. Take over as our eldest son, King Mamo, age 45. King Mamo is best known for his beauty and his one-eyedness. However, his beauty has led him to live a life of adultery and fornication. Humble, compassionate, and zealous, he takes after diplomacy much like his father. Freshly coronated, he inherits a war. And it's not going to be easy to win this one either. We're behind on troops and behind on war score. And on top of that, our realm has been torn into pieces. We wait back in our land to recover some manpower, and once our troops have reached an adequate size, we go ahead and begin the long trek across our brother's land to go engage the enemy. Once we hit their territory though, we end up losing a fight that's pretty vital towards the war effort. And unfortunately, with our troop count being so low, we really have no choice but to surrender to them, putting us again into a huge debt crisis. After the war, our realm priest comes in and notices the face of the Lord inside of our food. This stresses us out because of our zealous nature and leads us to a mental break. We end up becoming contrite and confessing all of our wrongdoings, and in doing so, we announce to the whole world that we have a bastard son.
Oh no.
With the world knowing of our sinful acts, we lose levels of devotion and become a sinner. This prevents us from declaring holy wars on our enemies. However, while all this was going on, one of our brothers dies and we inherit the entire kingdom of Nubia. So, you win some, you lose some. Being the sinner we are, we confiscate some church property to get out of debt. and then look to finish reuniting our realm. So we go ahead and declare war on our last landowning brother. We start the war off strong by interrupting one of his sieges with an easy victory and sieging down his capital to put us in a good spot. We split up our army to go attack him while he begins to siege down our capital, and we take an easy victory there. We then continue our carpet siege of his lands when suddenly an enemy declares war on us. They move in to attack one of our armies, so we end up having to abandon our carpet siege and regroup in order to fight them off. We take the victory there and a lead in both wars. We then have another close call when we go to unsiege some of the land that's been occupied while we've been fighting our brother. The enemy's entire force is bearing down on just 2,000 of our troops. However, we're able to manage a victory here and take a big lead in the war. Following that, we look to finish off the war of our brother by running down his army for one last battle. After winning that one, we have enough war score to enforce our demands, so we press them and are able to reunite our realm to its former glory.
You can't touch me! You can't touch me!
An attempt on our life is made, and it turns out to be our wife.
If she breathes, she's a god!
We can't afford to die, so we throw her into jail and move her into the dungeon, because nobody tries to kill the king. We begin to fear we're losing our grip on the kingdom when a peasant uprising happens, so we decide to assert our dominance by executing a bunch of our prisoners. Unfortunately, we started off with our wife, and it gave us the familiar kinslayer trait. My bad. With that mistake permanently made due to Iron Man mode, we go ahead and sort our prisoners by people who aren't our religion and just execute all of them to try and clean up the dungeon. With our dungeon free from infidels, we go ahead and just torture the rest. We're then able to wrap up this war by winning another battle and sieging down one more county, which puts us at 100 war score. As we enter an era of peace in our kingdom, we check our planner and see that we have the option to vassalize some nearby counts. This is partially due to the executions we did earlier because he is just terrified of us. We'll take it though, so we go ahead and vassalize him. It's at this point that being a sinner is really starting to rear its ugly head, as we have like 10,000 heirs, and our realm is just gonna completely shatter again if we don't do something about it.
Why can't I have no kids and 3
levels of devotion? We can't declare massive holy wars right now, but we do have a few claims, so we go ahead and take action on those. And while this war is only for one county, it's at least a step in the right direction towards securing the future prosperity of our realm. And as expected, this war goes really smoothly, as after sieging down the war goal and engaging them in a few battles, we get enough war score to finish this one up. Perhaps more interestingly, while this war was going on, we got an option to create a forest of a bunch of impaled corpses. We go ahead and take this option because it's kind of sick. And as a result, we become known as the Impaler. In another effort to snatch land up quickly, we realize that some of the vassals that we peacefully adopted into our realm aren't our religion. So we're gonna go ahead and use the trick of demanding them to convert and using their refusal as an excuse to revoke their titles. We're only 9 counties short of being able to form the Empire title, so every single one of these counties counts. We begin plotting a war for another one of our claims when one of our sons dies.
Woohoo! I mean, don't!
Inheritance is still looking pretty tough though, so we're gonna need to pick up the pace on these land acquisitions. And there's apparently some Game of Thrones shit going on when another one of my sons gets murdered, and then we find out someone's plotting to kill one of my daughters? Despite the imminent succession crisis, I do need at least one kid to live here. While all this has been going on, we've been working on our piety, and we're now no longer a sinner, which means we can declare holy wars for counties, which while small, will still help. Hopefully. We're able to wrap up that war for the county with pretty much no problem. However, now that we're 60 years old, we're on a really limited clock. So we go ahead and start declaring holy wars for counties because God, do we need the land. We easily win that war for a county and declare another one. All these holy wars have had a snowballing effect on our piety, and we're now able to declare holy wars for duchies. So we're able to declare one of those finally. We could be really close to forming an empire. However, wouldn't you know it? Basically, right after we declare war, we just die. We just die! And now the realm looks like this again. So great! Fun game! Fun game! We're taking over as the eldest kid, Abai. He's a zealous, generous, and arbitrary man who's pretty smart, actually. Unfortunately, he is a bastard, and he also only has one leg. But at least he's handsome. It's gonna be up to Abai to finally form this empire so we can stop dealing with this bullshit. Start our land reclamation by trying to retrieve some of our core counties from our inbred nephew. We think about revoking some of his counties, but it's going to incur a lot of tyranny, and we can't really afford to do that right now. We notice that we are his primary heir though, so, you know, a little murder never hurt anybody.
Except for the guy getting murdered.
Unfortunately though, our scheme gets discovered, which significantly lowers the chances of it succeeding and our chances of it being a secret. While our scheme is evolving, we're able to finish up that war our dad started, which I guess is alright. Really, our main concern is on regathering our core lands, and the scheme to murder our nephew ends up firing. We only have about a 50% chance of it working and a 70% chance of it being a secret, but we're kind of desperate, so we just go for it. Fortunately for us though, it ends up working. Later, idiot. Having regained all our core counties, we notice that the Kingdom of Nubia is in the midst of a civil war and has less troops than us. We use this opportunity to declare war on them and bring some of the realm back under our control. Nubia isn't doing too hot in their civil war, so as a result, we're able to siege down a ton of their counties without very much resistance. However, just when we think we have the war wrapped up, another enemy declares war on us. Fortunately though, once we siege down the Nubian capital, we get enough war score to finish that one off, making the war situation significantly less complicated. That is until another enemy decides to declare war on us.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
We also inherited a war from the Nubians as well, meaning we're at war with 3 people now. 2 of our enemies declared holy wars on us, meaning a bunch of other Jewish realms are coming in as allies to assist us. With their help, we're able to engage a much larger force and take a victory there, which is going to be key to winning one of those wars, which is good because we're going to choose to ignore this problem for now. They seem to have called an empire in on our asses, and losing this war would only lose us 2 counties, so honestly, we may just surrender this one. But for now, we're going to choose to continue to focus on the northern front. So we gang up on a bunch of troops that are trying to siege down the war goal and take a victory, which puts us at 94% war score. We're super close to finishing off one of these wars. As we're the ones controlling the war goal, it's only a matter of time before the ticking war score goes up to 100 and we're able to enforce our demands on the northern enemy. This leaves us with 2 remaining wars. We then turn our attention towards the western front and take not 1, but 2 victories, including this guy who's kind of spazzing out. What you doing, bud? It's at about this point that we decide that there's just no shot we're going to win the Southern War at all. So we surrender to them, giving up 2 counties. It's not a huge deal, but it's a little annoying. This does allow us to focus all our efforts onto the Western Front. So we charge in there head first and just get destroyed. The speed 5 might be a bit of a curse. In the midst of all this, one of our vassals finds out that we murdered our nephew however many years ago. This gives her a hook on us, which could be really annoying in the future. While we're trying to finish off this war, another peasant uprising fires, which just adds to the list of wars that we're in. We unsiege the war goal and then unsiege the other county they have occupied, when suddenly someone else finds out that we murdered our nephew. It's not much of a secret now, is it? We then go engage the enemy for one last battle, which allows us to have enough war score to end this war once and for all. We now only have the peasant uprising to deal with. As we head off to go fight the peasants, one of our vassals who has a hook on us uses it to gain tax exemption.
Read my lips.
And there's nothing we can do about it, so we have to give it to him. But in better news, the peasants fall with just a single battle. There's still another 2 kingdoms we need to bring within our control in order to reunite our realm. So we go ahead and start with the weaker one. However, right after we declare that war, there's a massive peasant uprising that we have to deal with again. All this stress and war we've been through has turned our king into a bit of an alcoholic. The peasant uprising gets real annoying when we have to chase them into Saudi Arabia. We're able to crush the uprising, but in the meantime, the enemy kingdom has managed to siege down a ton of our provinces. We race back to our territory to go fight their army. However, as soon as we do that, someone else declares war on us.
This is getting really annoying.
Fortunately though, after unsieging a bunch of our counties, we're able to get enough war score to finish off our offensive war. Our defensive war also goes really easily, and we finish that one off. Our king is now 47 years old and has spent pretty much his entire reign at war. And he's not done yet, because there's still one more kingdom we need to bring back under our control to reunite our realm. So we declare war on our final landowning sibling. He somehow starts already in our territory, so we run down and engage him in a battle. We win that and then run up and siege down his capital. After sieging down even more of his land and then engaging him in another fight, we end up just short of being able to finish off this war. So we're forced to siege down one more county, and then we get to end the war, finally reuniting the realm to its former glory. However, we're still 4 counties short of being able to secure this realm by forming an empire. So the war machine is not over yet.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
We start by declaring a holy war for duchy on one of our neighbors. This will give us 3 counties, meaning we'll only need 1 more. We do this war in record time for us, and entirely in speed 5. We just go siege down his capital, engage his army, siege down 1 more province, and boom, it's over. We check our succession for the first time this life, and we see that thankfully we've only had 2 sons, and it's actually easy to manage this. Our king is now 57, and we're on a pretty limited clock to secure the requirements for this empire. We just need one more county and 1,000 gold. We try to just blitz through this war at speed 5, and we're successful for a little bit until somehow we end up losing one of the battles, and we have to go retreat into our territory, and it's pretty annoying. After we regain our strength, we go sit on their capital and prepare for a fight, but the enemy never really seems to want to engage. Which is fine, because someone else decided to declare war on us. All right. We're able to wrap up the single county war, which gives us enough counties to form the empire. But first, we're going to need to deal with Doffer. Mercifully, this war is super easy, as we just blitz straight into their capital and win the war right then and there. Now that we finally have enough land to form the empire title, we need to get 1,000 gold. With the end of our life potentially being at any moment, it's going to be a real nail biter to see if we can form this empire or not.
Come on, Tars.
Fortunately for us though, we live long enough to get 1,000 gold, and we're finally able to bring peace and prosperity to our new empire.
Your new empire?
We now have a ton of prestige, so we figure it might be a good idea to reform the culture, taking a new perk. I forgot to pause it while I was looking through these perks, and our guy ends up dying, basically right after forming the empire. So, that's cool. We'll be taking over as Mamo II. A zealous, compassionate, and ambitious man, he took to a learning education much like his father. Despite him being one-legged, he is quite handsome too. As the first real emperor of this empire, Mamo will surely adhere to his religion with true devotion that his zealous nature has intended.
Look at this graph.
Unfortunately, Mamo's wife has contracted leprosy, which reduces her fertility by 95%. Mamo only has a single daughter, and she's very likely to be his heir. Our ruler is almost entirely spec'd on a theologian tree, which will give him a ton of piety, but at this point, I'm kind of sick of going to war all the time, so just gotta be something else we can do with all that piety. Mamo's religious adventures start when he writes his own Jewish play. He even chooses to star in it. But as it would turn out, the people absolutely love the play and his performance, which may have given him a big head. In an attempt to be a good Jewish boy, Mamo restores the Jewish head of faith title, but he's not really sure why it can't be him. After all, his family is the one who's restored the Jewish faith to this region. If there's anyone who should be the leader of this faith, it should be this family. And if Mamo was in charge, there's a few things he would change. One, we would definitely be more fundamentalist, because having to evict the heathens after each holy war is really annoying. Next, we would take a more active approach to spreading the faith with armed pilgrimages. We would then take some inspiration from the Catholics by adopting communion in order to use gold to forgive our sins. There's been a history of sinfulness in our family, and it's perhaps something that a little gold could help. And finally, we should control our own temples, and the head of faith shouldn't be theocratic, but temporal. This just so happens to have the side effect of us being the head of faith, but hey, it's for the good of the religion. It's gonna take a nice chunk of faith in order to get this done, so we come up with a plan to start building our piety. Our culture has the Fervent Temple Builders perk, which gives us 500 piety every time we construct a temple. We plan on building a bunch of them, but we need to unlock city planning first. So we switch our research to that, and then go on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to start stacking some serious piety. Our emperor faces a great tragedy though when his wife dies. This causes him immense stress, and he ends up becoming a bit of a stoner as a result. As we've had such a peaceful reign as emperor so far, we've gotten enough gold to finally build the Grand Temple, which will skyrocket our economy. This peacefulness has also led to many a feast in our kingdom, and as a result, we've become obese. Possibly also due to some munchies. We have managed to finish researching city building, and all our temples are getting pretty near completion now. We're getting real close to being able to reform our faith. Meanwhile, in part 2 of Byzantium, You're Drunk, Go Home, the Basilius is now Catholic. Cool. Eventually though, once all our temples are finished building, we have enough piety to finally reform our faith. We give it a name fitting of one of our favorite things, Gifa, and get ready to take control of the religion. We make the swap and a lot of our vassals convert. But a lot of their vassals don't, so we got a lot of work in front of us to convert everybody. With all the prestige we've gotten from being both the emperor and the religious leader, we go ahead and reform our culture to take the By the Sword perk. This allows us to declare unlimited holy wars for kingdoms in our lifetime. This will be excellent for the purposes of spreading the faith. We then have the first member of our religion ask for an indulgence. For 100 gold, your sins are forgiven, my child. And we're going to be able to build up super tall of all that gold too. We have an insane amount of discounts towards building and temples, and all the extra gold coming in from those indulgences mean we're going to have an insane economy. That is until we die, and our heir doesn't have the same bonuses towards building. Why? But hey, we've successfully formed an empire and become the Jewish Pope. Can't take that away from us. And with those powers combined, we should have an easy time forming Jerusalem next. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, drop a like, I'd really appreciate it. If you're looking for more content, you can look at how we got here in this video, or for the continuation in this one. Thanks for watching, see you guys later, bye!